Okay, and then I'm going to share my screen.
If I just click on not continue by the other button, so I will be kicked out of the meeting, I assume, right? If I don't agree to be in recording. Okay, I never tried, so I just wonder.
So what we are facing now is the need analysis and expert interviews. The needs analysis in, you could say, in a different layers. There are more than one layer to the needs analysis. We have done a needs analysis for the project, and it's part of the application. But then we are looking at the needs of the content and the delivery of our products, and we will have to look at what we can do with expert interviews. Of course, there is a method. There are books, there are articles on expert interviews as a method. They're a little bit stuffy, like many things that have a design or a method attached to it. So what we would have to do probably is to pick and choose from it what is relevant for us in our environment. And but the first things probably that we will have to do is look at who are the experts? What expertise are we looking for? Because that's not obvious. We are experts in some fields, but of course we will need someone else, and probably a lot of them. And we will also have to be aware of in what sense or capacity they are experts. There will be a different one for different purposes. So that's the work that we have ahead of us. Who are the experts, and in what sense or capacity are they experts? And I wanted to start working now, but as we are just 4 of us, I think I don't think that we will spend time on going into different groups, but just go with the flow now. And I'm going to share. I'm sharing the screen, and you should probably have the Word document here. So what I was planning, you see the Word document there. You can see what I'm sharing, the Word document. Can you?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. So to start with, identify the experts, and you probably realize that what we have here is the what, who, why, how, when, and where parts of analysis. I'm pretty fond of those simple solutions or simple methods of doing things, and I find that they are interesting. You know these what, who, why, how, when, and where things that we use for analysis, don't you? You've seen them before, probably. I guess so. Well, okay. This method of asking those questions, what, who, why, how, when, and where, has been used by journalists for quite a long time, from the middle of the last century, really. And what journalists say, that in a good story, in a good news story, you will have to answer all those questions. What happened? Kauri told the newspapers that the statistics for COVID were rubbish. And who? Well, that was Kauri. And why? Well, probably because he was angry at something. And how did he do it? He did it in public on a social media, and he did it yesterday. And where was he? He was in Reykjavik. Well, if you answer all those questions, you get you get to the surface of the news or the item that you're looking for. But what journalists do, many of them that use this technique, they answer those questions in 3 layers, really. So who if I said, who did this? It was Kauri. Okay, but Kauri as what? Kauri as a statistician, a mathematician, and okay, who is he though? He is assistant professor at Bifröst. So you're answering these questions in different layers. And why did he do it? Well, he was angry, yeah, but he might have some interest in this. And when we look at it closer, he has connection to some extremist left or right wing activists, whatever. So I find this technique useful because, well, uh, I'm a computer scientist in my background, and I have done a lot of system analysis and design parts in different companies, and both as a consultant and as just an employee. And I taught system analysis and system design in Reykjavik University for 8 years or so, and wrote a little textbook on the matter. And I always get back to those 6 questions and try to answer them wherever possible. The first time when you look at those questions, you might not see the relevance. Well, here, does it matter if Kauri wrote this on a social media? Does it matter if it happened yesterday? If we are looking at some techniques that we are going to use in our products in this in our project. When, well, that might indicate when, in what phase, and then more detailed. And usually you, with experience with this, you get quite good at answering those questions in more than one layer. So this is what I was planning to do with you. I think we should just stay in one group, as we are just a few of us. It's a group of 2 is a very small group. It's a pair, not a group really. So what we will have to do now, I want us to do now, is try to identify the experts that we are going to need. I had planned for 2 groups, one to deal with technical part and one with the content part, and identify experts in those different from this different viewpoint. But let's now brainstorm a little. We could use a nice software that me and Kauri have been using for brainstorming, but I decided not to complicate matters. So I'll just have this Word document, and as I'm sharing it, I'm going to fill in the ideas that we come up with. And we can do it as a formal brainstorming going around, and probably that is a good starting point. So if we are looking for our experts, in what expertise are we looking for experts? Can you tell me? Have you any ideas? What expertise are we looking for? And I think you can unmute your microphone more or less. I don't think if it's more convenient. So what expertise are we looking for? What fields?
Well, I suppose there will be more than one.
Yes, probably. We have in our application, we talked about educators, teachers. I guess that's educators.
Well, just a quick question to clarify. We are talking about experts for which of the 2 intellectual outputs?
Okay, so let's pick and choose. What do you want to do?
Well, let's talk about the second one that is related to the digital education recognition.
Okay. Record output. Second output.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's where we have to do some analysis.
Okay, so what kind of expertise are we looking for? If we try to define that. Any ideas?
Well, I would expect that we look for someone who is an expert in blockchain technology.
Okay. Blockchain. Blockchain. There are some guys working on the downstairs here. Do you hear the rumbling of the? You don't hear? Okay, that's all. Okay, and it's just me that hear the rumbling of drills and stuff like that. Okay, blockchain technician. Okay, what expertise do we need more than that?
I guess we need feedback from administrators who work with the education so that what technicians or say technical experts will be able to suggest will be projected onto how the administration is capable of absorbing those advices or say new trends, whatever you call it.
Okay. Can we add some more?
Well, I guess we need to talk also about say the consumers who will be using those like students or say I'm not really sure about students. I think it's more value for those who get additional education after they already completed the cycle. So like those returners.
Graduating students. Are you talking about that? Graduating students?
No, I'm talking about professionals who at certain point want to add something to their education so that like it's professional development rather than graduate students, because those who already are within the system, I think they are getting this package, which is just a standard one, so they don't really need novelty. But those who say add something, like you get your online course from, I don't know, MIT, you want this to be recognized as a valuable thing. And you should be the one who is keenly interested in this to happen.
Okay. Okay. Zdenka, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just think about designers.
Designers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it was already mentioned, yeah, the users, so who already, someone who is already a part of such a blockchain group.
Okay.
What about you, Irina?
Hello. I think that maybe the bodies that are responsible for the recognizing of the studies in different countries. So, for example, in each country there is a body where you go with your study documents, and they are able to tell you if the knowledge, if the study is validated or not. So those national bodies that validate the studies. And of course, there are some bodies at European level too. So it's the Bologna pool of experts, a part of with all the system of ECTS that was approved at European level. So I think that these representatives of these bodies are really, because for example, at this moment, they do not recognize online studies. They recognize just documents on paper signed and stamped by official higher education institutions that are accredited in the system. So I think this part is very important.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because we are doing most of our teaching and learning and distant teaching and learning online. So it's an interesting thing whether there will be some universities or some bodies that would not want to accept those degrees. But yeah, that's a new one. I haven't thought about that before. Good one. Okay. Any other that we think the experts? Any other kind of experts?
Well, I was thinking about the university management who is responsible, but we can cover them by administrators, perhaps.
Okay.
In this connection, I just think, sorry for interrupting, about those who at universities have got the process of, for example, nostrification, who are doing this documentation approval. For example,
Admission.
yeah. So there's as well the administrating staff. However, as I know, for example, at BUT at our university, there is one lady who is specialized on this process.
So the admin for the admission of students. Yeah. Okay, clearly. So
this is somehow like connected to the previous one where we talk about validation.
Yeah,
well, but
that might be external bodies, while the admin
are internal.
might be internal to the. But okay, it's yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
and maybe just in connection with Irina said, these bodies for validating. So there are as well some accreditation committees and experts of accreditation committees who can be as well good for asking, because they should know or are familiar with this processes as well.
Okay. It's interesting. Okay, we have made a progress. In some sense, we have answered the question, what expertise? And in a sense, who are they? We have mentioned those administrators, those students, those professionals. But if we were asking, I'm just leaving this part of it. We could go on a little bit further, but we might come back to it in another phase when we work on this more closely. But then, who are they? Do we know them? Do we know who they are, the persons? Because we're talking about experts, and we are going to try to interview those experts. So have you knowledge of who they are? I know my people, so that's my people. That might be, well, those within my organization. I work in a very small organization, and the administrative staff, well, they can fit to one room, really. So I'm lucky. I know my people, but do you know the persons in context with your institution? Do you know the persons that might have these expertise? Or the question really is, do we have to spend some time on trying to find the individuals, the persons?
Should it necessarily be someone you really know from your institution? Because to me, like, if you say that you have a very small organization, then I wouldn't really call them all experts. They probably are knowledgeable people in some area, but you know, this is something which I feel not very comfortable nowadays, because say, if you talk about like inviting an expert to express opinion, usually it were a really elderly university professor or some politician with 50 years of career behind and talking about the things. Now an expert can be, you know, a young guy you stop in the street and he says, well, I created my startup and earned 3 million in 2 weeks. So I will tell you how to do business. And I respect that. But I don't really see that this is exactly the expert in that classical understanding as I have somewhere on the back of my memory.
Okay. Okay.
I might be wrong.
So not just knowledgeable.
And also a related issue is, say, when we offer something to validate, I think we need to include in this panel of experts also people who actually judge the quality of education, so that professors in that field say, if we offer some education and we want it to be acknowledged digitally, then there should be someone who says, yes, it's really a valuable course and this is corresponding to all those standards, so that meeting the standards, we acknowledge that if you digitalize that, say, part of education, this course or whatever, then it's really a valuable one. Because
we're talking about someone from the Ministry of Education or something.
No, I'm rather like, say, for example, I was teaching calculus in different countries, and demands are very different. So when I was coming to Cyprus and I started grading exam papers, then the course coordinator told me, look, Yuri, if you continue like this, we'll fail all the students. So you shouldn't apply your, say, Soviet or Ukrainian standard here. We need to adjust it. You need to give partial credits because the mark is not just solved correctly or no mark. So that was a different, I would say, cultural difference and experience, which means that, say, if we say that you have A in, I don't know, statistics from the University of Bifrost, we wish to see that this A in statistics is at certain level, which is also like, so some people at MIT may say, well, our C is better than your A, and this is still questionable. So that kind of like...
Could you mention, or could you pinpoint a person or a type of person who that is? You say, no, it's not from the Ministry of Education.
No, it's like expert in the field. Say, if we ask Joseph, for instance, to name a couple of people he would like to invite for a PhD defense of his student, then in his field, he will name like, okay, I know those guys, they are good. So like a reliable opinion.
Okay. Zdenka or Irina, have you?
Yeah, if I may,
Yeah.
I just think if you, Yuri, mean, for example, the members of the board of the studying programs, what you have described, I just think that the acknowledgement of the content of the courses is actually validated at the university or faculty levels by this.
No, it's like
something.
I have an example. I was teaching the course which was previously taught by another person. I was just taking the same textbook, the same curriculum, the same course outline. I was just teaching it differently. So I was solving problems, calculating integrals, evaluating some stuff, and students complained that that's too much. I demand a very high demand for their, say, participation. They are afraid that they will fail the course because they were very successful in the previous one, and now they are not following me. And it's because just I really teach it differently. So I demand them to learn certain things and to know certain things. And when they came to my course without being prepared to that, they blame me on that rather than blaming herself, himself, or the situation or whatever, the previous instructor. So they say that I'm doing something wrong because they used to be successful and now they are not. So that's like the gap between the different levels of students, different levels of teaching, different demands. It's, I would say, like, if you talk about academic refereeing of the paper, then you express your opinion and you say whether it's a worth publication thing or not. And that is like checking the quality against some kind of, okay, it doesn't exist, this sample, which is ideal paper, but something like that. The same about the course. So because formally it might look on paper that this is exactly that same course we teach in Harvard, but it might happen that in Harvard they teach really a very different thing. So what we cover in 3 weeks, they cover in the first class, and much deeper. I had this experience also, like I was teaching another course, and I thought that University of Oslo probably should have the highest standard, but then I realized that they actually teach much less than I was planning to teach. So it's really not the name of the university, it's more like the really insight into what is being taught in the course. And it might be that the difference is not just related to the name or who is teaching. It's a lot of
someone who knows the standards and they prove it.
Well, someone who knows the subject.
A subject, okay.
So say if Jon Freyer is teaching us how to make this analysis, I trust him because he's an expert for me. He has a lot of experience. He gave me the short description of what he has been doing, and it's very impressive. So I trust him.
Okay.
But if Josef makes his opinion on the same subject and says, well, I believe that this is the right way of doing this, then I will be a little bit hesitating because I know he's an expert in differential equations, but not in that field of analysis.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think we
that's
got
nice.
it.
Okay. You see, well, when we could go into this, we have complicated environment, even though we are just looking at now certain technical parts of the stuff. We're not looking at the content. We're not looking on gamification or any other stuff. So it's a tedious job to go and analyze, but we will have to do that, and we will have to do it in some manner like that. I'm going to go to the next part here, but remember that in all of those, it's very important to try to go to all the levels, not just on the surface, who's there, but who is that person really? And you're talking about the knowledgeable, the expert, and whatever, and then probably at the end, because he's a professor of blah, blah, blah. So we would have certain layers of looking at what expertise and then in what field and how extensive or good it is. And when we do the who stuff and the what stuff here, we really at some point we need to find the persons. So somewhere after that, when we have finished a little bit more on this, we might be better able to find the exact person. And we will have to also consider, because who, the part of who and probably where is, do we have to have experts from all of the participating countries? Is it enough to have one or two? There are a lot of other things that we have to consider. So if we want to have experts from all of the countries, we need to also answer the question, why do we need that? Is this a general knowledge, or is this something to do with a nationality or a country? So there are a lot of questions that we need to answer when we fill in this who, why, how, and what, and where, and everything. So we are just touching the surface. And the purpose of this meeting was to show you, well, this is one way of doing it. It's an established thing to do. And also I tend to go away from too complicated methods, because usually there's a few that understand the complicated methods, that it will be just a junk out of it, because, well, if you're doing something that you're not quite familiar with, you will get lost there, and you don't say the things that you need because you're afraid of being found out to be stupid or whatever. That's how I feel. Okay, but we would have to go deeper into this, and we have, of course, methods to do that. And like I said, me and Kauri, we've been doing this design thinking workshops with students and courses, and that's something that I would like to talk to you about later now today, because there we have a structure that helps us and it incorporates a lot of stuff that's from this method also. But when we will have to ask us also, why do we need those experts? Why, if I go back, why do I need someone from the administrative part or the admission admin? Are they relevant now, or should we take them later? Why do we want them now? Are they important? And of course you have answered, and probably the answer is yes, but we will have to explain why, because we don't want to interview 50 experts And we will have to know when are we going to do this local and when are we going to do this as just for the project. So why, on the basis of the expertise, why do we have to have this kind of expertise? Do we have to have the student's expertise as a student? Is the student an expert in something? Is he an expert in learning? And then of course, well, is there anyone that's an expert in learning? And I mean, not teaching, but learning. These are the questions that, well, I would have asked if we were going through this process, and I guess we will have to do that with all of this. This is just a draft. We are just getting the look and feel of this one. So there are always layers, and like I said, well, usually people get comfortable with this after trying it out once, twice, or 3 times, and usually see the benefits from this structure. And okay, so I'm going to skip this why part because well, we mentioned some of it, but that's for later work. But then, how do we locate those people? Are we going to search the internet? Are we going to search academics? Are we going to search research papers? How do we locate those experts? Any ideas?
Own experience. So you obviously, like you said, I know your people are close to you, so you can ask them directly if they are already qualifying as experts, or if they would recommend you someone you can talk about. Plus, you may have some own idea, like, oh, I know that this is the person who probably can be asked those questions, so answer me meaningfully. So that's the first layer. But then, of course, those further contacts, they give you additional layers when you go deeper and deeper. So you start with those who are closer to you and easier to approach. You may ask your friends when you have a cup of coffee together, whether you know someone who could be knowledgeable about this, or someone would be mentioning, oh, I have received this digital recognition for the course. And then you talk to that person.
And you probably would use a network. You have a network of guys and
I know
gals.
that.
So yeah, and we would have to mobilize that network. Okay, any other ideas on how to locate?
I think what you mentioned, it makes sense. That's how I would start, by using internet. Perhaps some research papers, if it depends on the field, but when it comes to blockchain, I would search the internet first and then see what comes out, and then maybe check some research on that.
Dig deeper, okay.
Yeah, if necessary, of course.
And just well, later on in this program now, I'm just going to talk about these methods that are used in computer science for design, analyzing and design. And because it's very important that you design the process of this in a manner that gives us possibility of going back, iteration of things. So it's a recursion in some way. And so that's in my experience, that is important, because if there's no turning back, you're going to find the truth now and then carry on. You will go on forever. You will be paralyzed by analysis or whatever it is. So the knowledge that we can go back to this process is important, because even though we say, okay, we have to do a lot more on how, because we will have to get more precise in the expertise. We might have to look better at who they are and then how to locate. So we'll be going back and forth, and that's pretty obvious, I would think. But well, sometimes when I think when you're doing a desktop research, you're on your own or with a few colleagues, and you many of us tend to go very deep at the beginning. And when we are designing our research or whatever, and then we having problems when we have defined the research and the research question, how can I go back because I've got admitted with this project. So it's important for us in this process that we are going through, that we know that we will go back, we can go back, and it will be an iteration. And definitely, like in the project proposal, we are talking about, of course, getting the feedback from the first states and then redoing things. And this might be also what we have to redo because we learn something for the process. We are doing the first cases and trying them out, and then we have to go back. And something like this, this analysis has to be a thing that we go back to also because we are finding a ground, we are connecting with the earth, we are trying to find something to stand on. And if we decide that this might be a good way of doing it, in my opinion it is, but you may differ in your opinion, that's okay. But that gives us the possibility of saying, okay, I can skip this for now, but there's a blank part here, and I know I will have to do something there. I know it because it's blank. And that's important also to know if there's something blank, you have to fill it or make decision. And of course, well, what we will have to do also is schedule things. Where in the process do we have to find a special expertise? When do we have to find the guy with the blockchain technology? Is it important that we do it now in the first phase or the second phase or in the middle of first phase? So that's a very important part, how to schedule it so it will make some sense. And then we have to say, okay, let's go back to what expertise we are talking about. What people, and when do we have those different parts? Because some of them might be just no reason for them to be there until the end of something. So this can be used as a scheduling part. You can schedule from doing this analysis, and it helps you to answer those questions and in all the layers. And like I said, we're just testing this, just trying this out. We're not going to finish this. It's just for the purpose of showing you what we could do, what we could use as a method. Of course, we will be looking at other methods also. And we will have to look at the where part also. Where are we going to find them? Where are we going to meet them? Where are we going to talk to them? Whatever. And at this state, well, there's another page that was just for if we had been working in groups and splitting in it in a different way, but never mind, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to leave this one. And what I want to do now, I want to show you the interview of this guy, Sigmundur Ernir Rúnarsson. He's probably there's some, how do I get it to be, can I get the audio from my computer? Do you hear?
No.
Okay. What do I have to do to get the computer audio also? Meeting controls.
You need to add the speakers, but I'm not sure you will be able to run both.
Okay, so I will have to mute myself to be able to.
I think it should be possible to run both, but at least you will have to.
I'm trying to get the controls here. There, so okay, just stop sharing here a while so I can get to this one. audio settings. Can I get to that? Sorry for this.
I have a question which we may discuss while you are fixing this issue. And this is a very important question because I guess it's also what we do in the class, this kind of choice. You say, ask a question, and then you give students time to reflect and answer it. And if they don't answer it the way you expected, you like scaffold, you give them hints or you do something to encourage them to say things. So during the interview, of course, it's not teaching, it's a different thing, but still, like what we want to hear from those experts and how do we get them to say that stuff we want to hear? Because one option is, like, as I mentioned, students, we may somehow implicitly influence their answers by encouraging them to talk about certain things or discouraging talking about certain things. And a lot of, it's a lot of our preparation, which is embedded there so that the interview is really like a kind of, you are a robot asking questions, not the person who is influencing the process. And this is not easy. I know this.
Yeah, okay. Do you think, Joseph, that you could play the video with the audio, or have you done that?
Well, I'm not sure. I have never tried this, so that's an interesting question.
Okay, well, because I have this file in Teams.
Okay, so let me try.
And it should be in my folder, really. I think it's the Jónfrey's folder. Or what? Where can it be? General files and Jónfrey's folder. Can you find that? It's called SER MP4. I know how to turn this on in Teams, but I don't know how to access it.
I'm just waiting for the Teams to open. Yeah, I see this MP4 file. Okay, so let me try if I can open that. Okay, so it has sound for me, but
sound for you, but it doesn't.
Yeah, let's see what happens if I share the screen.
Or the player, yeah. Might be different if you share the screen or share the application that's running.
Yeah. So now you should be able to see that.
But it doesn't play.
No.
No. Okay. It's there, but you don't get the audio. Okay.
Did you hear the sound?
No.
No.
I'm just wondering if I share just the application, my application, is it possible? You can't. Did you hear anything? Okay.
No, not
so
yet.
There's another suggestion. We have that in Teams. Are you able to log on to Teams and just go to the folders in the BoostEdU general folder, general, and the files there, and Jónfrey's folder. So we could take a break in a way that you will find this, locate this one, and listen to it, and then we get back and there are some things that I want to discuss. Is that well? That's a way of fixing this. Do you think are you able to log on to Teams?
Yeah.
Are all of you?
Okay, it's SERMP4, right?
Yeah. So you just click on it and Zdenka, are you getting there? Can you find it?
Not yet. I'm just trying to find your file.
Okay. So it is in a general part of it, of the BoostEdU.
Okay.
Then files.
Well, it's a good question.
Can you hear?
Yes, yes, from your computer.
Irina, can you find it?
No, not yet.
Are you logged into Teams? Irina, are you with us or can you find it?
Where should I look for it?
You're in Teams on BoostEdU. There's a
Yes,
the general part, and then
yeah.
you go and find files.
Okay. In general, files.
And then it's your own space folder. And then it's the MP4 file there.
This MP. Okay.
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 So you will listen and watch. Zdenka, are you there? Okay. Let's get back when we finish that one.
Okay, what do you want to happen in an interview? Well, that's a good question. Something expressive, something you want out of the interview. First of all, the preparation. Probably you will let the guy you are interviewing know about the interview in a week advance, couple of days, enough. But don't let him know everything you're going to ask. Just the form of the interview, maybe 3 points. If you let him know every questions, the whole interview, he will start to focus on the sentences, the words he's going to say. So what will happen in the interview? He's a bit frozen because he's thinking about all of these sentences he made before the interview. So it's the best way to don't prepare enough, just a little bit, and then the interview will be more relaxed. You know that the guy in front of you, he knows everything. He has studied this field for a decade or his life, so he's able to talk and talk and talk. That's not the interview. The interview is Q&A, question and answers. So don't forget your answers, don't forget what you will have out of the interview. So you're the director, you are forming this interview. So after the first question, it's about what the main thing is. Listen. Listen is the main thing in all interviews. Don't focus on your next question, focus on the answer, because the answer is the main thing. And use the little questions. Why? Explain to me. Give me an example. Because these little questions gives the most beautiful answers. Because then the guy you're interviewing start to
I don't hear anything.
That I know that this aspect Sigmundur is talking about is, well, he's talking about artists, he's talking about politicians and writers and whatever. Those are the usual guests in his show, but he is also getting doctors and statisticians, and he's talking about COVID and all kinds of scientific things. But I think there's a lot to be learned in the approach, how you approach people, even though they are hardcore specialists, they don't have to be treated like machines. But then we will have to look at types of interviews, and I'm getting now back to my slides, because the experts, they have, like we've been talking about, they have high insights in specific processes. And those are often networked persons, and we were talking about how we could use our own network to get to those experts. And when we talk to someone, it usually leads to other interviews. And I could have used Sigmundur and said, okay, can you point me to someone who is really in the market of technology and whatever? And he probably would know a guy who knows a guy who knows a gal. And experts are usually motivated. Usually they want to be asked questions. They really want to tell us what they know. They might not be always good at it. I don't know if you know the actor Alan Alda. He has a part of a school in the United States, in New York, really, where he is teaching scientists to talk to people in layman language without dumbing it down. And I'm going to have a clip from him in some folder there for you to look at later. But the experts, then it's a question of what kind of interviews. We might want to interview a person in more than one way. We might have to want to have an informal conversational interview, and just looking at those types of interviews, there are just 4 types of, can of course be more definitions. We probably are going to have some general interviews, some guide that we put together, some checklist to ensure that we are getting same level of information or collecting data in a coordinated way, because probably when we are talking to our experts, it's best that we talk to them in our own language. Getting it into English, it doesn't help really. But we have to extract the information and then, of course, put it in some internationally accepted language, something like that. But we have to think about those things. We can have a standardized, both open-ended and closed-ended, and we will have to look at those possibilities and probably have more than one type and even more than one kind of interview with a certain person. That's what we have to do when we design it. And okay, getting back to Sigmundur Ernir, I thank him for his valuable input. Nice of him to give us his time. But what we will have to look at the types of topics in questions also, and these are from, well, these points in the slides are from different articles, and I will of course collect or make a reading list on some of this stuff, but I didn't want to do it beforehand. And like Sigmundur said, if you prepare them too much, they might only be thinking about answers and they might be going into the wrong direction. So based on his advice, I decided not to have you work before this meeting, because that was not the purpose of this workshop. The workshop was on us looking at things and asking ourselves questions. And of course, we do have a lot of material on how to prepare for an interview. And that is one of the things that I mentioned earlier that I would at least help with and at least put forward a suggestion that we can work on, because, well, we all need some help and some advice and some checklist, and also to be on the same page, even though we have open-ended interviews at sometimes, but there will probably be some fixed things. But then we have to remember, because, well, even though Sigmund was talking about artists, when we are doing some gamification part of it, we will have to talk to designers, those who design the games. We will have to talk to artists and layout people and whatever. So these are not the hardcore blockchain technical types. They are of a different kind. And those advice from Sigmundur is something that we can look into, and I will certainly incorporate as a part of a checklist for different kinds of interviews. But I also talked to doctors, and this one is a medical doctor, a PhD, who works as a family physician really, and she said the patient is the expert in his own health. Because I was asking her, how do you interview an expert? And she said that the most important thing was this part of her job, realizing that the patient is an expert. And if you don't invite him into your space where you have a technicality, she has the technicality of helping this person to do something. She has the scientific background, but you have to admit this person into your space. And that meaning, well, we are doing something with a layout as the artist or gamification person that might be of a different kind than we are. We have to invite them into our space because they are experts, even though we don't know their expertise. So, and I also talked to artists, and they were pretty much the same. They said, okay, we have to invite people in, we have to do this stuff, and more or less what Sigmund said, and of course it will be incorporated in some checklists. So that's for this part. I know we have, what was the time limit? Did we want to have it 1.5 hours, or what was it, Joseph? Did we mention the?
Well, we originally talked about replacing the meeting, so about 1 hour.
Mhm.
But I think we are still okay.
Okay. I will probably go more quickly through the rest of it, but okay, we can stop wherever we want also. But the need analysis, okay, that's I want to talk to you about software design and analysis. 50 years ago, people working in the software business, usually hardcore technicians also, they had this linear way of finding the truth. You just sat down and you worked with people and you found things out, and then you designed it and you built it and whatever. And of course, this is a simplification of what people did, but later in the 80s, there were plans and processes that had incorporated in them the recursion, the going back and iteration of things. And actually now for the last 15 years in the software business, people are using what is called Agile or Scrum. They are doing short sprints. You go for a certain certain feature and you quickly define the scope, you design it, and you produce it, and even within the matter of days. Some of the features may be within a day, some of the larger features within a month or a week, but it's advisable not to take the big chunks and just do it incrementally. And that is what we also have to look at into our process, to have this incremental development. We have designed two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. We're going to test something, and then we're going to try something new on based on techniques. We might want to think, can we do it, can we have more sprints, more well, more phases? If we are testing in our classes or in courses we teach, if they are not overlapping, if my course is finished before your course is, and I gain some knowledge from what I'm doing, might it be possible for me to get that knowledge to you so that you can probably maybe adjust what you are doing? That would be something of this Agile Scrum feeling, really. And I think we should at least consider this as a possibility, because getting in a linear fashion, all of us doing the same thing and getting the same results or same problems, if someone happens to stumble across something, we should have the process of making that available to everyone. So, so that we don't only have two phases, we might have some iteration within them. But that's open for questions and open for discussion. We also have to look at what needs we are looking at. And you mentioned something when we're looking at the players or the experts. Are we looking at an institutional level, our university? Is it just the project-based needs that we are looking for? But usually when you're talking about needs analysis, and this is from one article, doesn't really have any more important than being a reasonable good list. But it's called the organizational analysis, person analysis, because you're looking at people who are working. In our case, it will be technicians, it will be teachers, educators and students. Is it an analysis of work and task, performance, content, training, cost-benefit analysis? We will have to consider all of those options and say, okay, what's important? What of this has to be part of our needs analysis? And this now is a way of saying, okay, we will have to look at this. We can look at it and discard it and say, okay, that's just nonsense. Let's not do that. But it's easier to look at this before and rather than afterwards, so we can get more quickly to the best results and the best analysis that we have. And of course, when you're doing the needs analysis, we are looking at the players and they might not be experts. Needs analysis, we were talking about experts before, but we have to look at how the students feel, those who are there, educators and the students, or other people that might not be considered as experts, but they are players, they are stakeholders, and we will have to look at, well, definition of an expert, definition of a stakeholder or a player, and if we are going to, well, there's one thing that we have mentioned before, Kaure and me, and I was talking about earlier. We have this layout for design thinking workshops. These can be done online. We've tried that one twice now in 2 courses. And we are prepared to set up workshops, either with a whole lot of your group or within each country, local, whatever. And because when then the problem with needs analysis is when you start, you only see the needs that you know, that you see. But the hidden part of it, and like what Sigmund was saying, okay, the people are telling us the stories and we hear new things. And we will have to tap on that knowledge, try to get something new, because if we only look at what we see and it's there will just be incremental additions or improvement, but we might want to have something disruptive, something new. And one of the ways to do that well and within a reasonable scope is doing this design thinking and doing those workshops. And I know, Kauri, and I'm willing to help you with that. Of course, there might be problems with language barrier, but we can talk about that later. We talked in our proposal also about design thinking and universal design. What I have seen about universal design is more getting the disabilities, getting education to everyone, not depending on their abilities. But we mentioned design thinking, and of course there are some stuff within this universal designs that are things that we will have to look at and maybe incorporate in some way in our design. It's one of the main features or ideas about design thinking is the co-creation. Co-creation meaning that, let's take for an example a project that was run at Bifröst, and we were looking at better ways of using the facilities of the campus for various reasons. And we went into this co-creation phase where there were teachers, students, administrative parts, all the residents at Bifröst, because not all of them were students. And this co-creation of having people with different backgrounds and different needs, creating this together, it makes wonderful things, and sometimes something disruptive that we never thought of. We get ideas that we have hadn't in our wildest dreams, and this happens in those situations, and it's a really it's a productive way of creating wonderful new things. And then, well, like you know, this is my favorite, those 6 questions. They always apply when you are writing an article, or when you are writing something in a journal or news, whatever. If you don't answer those questions, there's something missing from what you're doing. And in my experience doing analysis for software, analysis for a software or a program is only partly about the technique, partly about the interface. It's has a lot to do with the workflow and the ideas, and so they often get on board when I ask those questions with my people, and definitely when go into probably the 3 layers of this the basic what you see, what's underneath, and what is the core of things. I think, well, we have spent 1.5 hours now, and of course, there would have been group work on needs analysis, but that would have been more or less doing this this work here again. So I'm just going to stop here and then go back to what the idea was with this workshop. We were not going to finish analysis. We were not going to do the expert interviews, but I wanted to have a platform to talk with you about those things. And of course, I have certain background and expertise in some of this. And of course, I'm willing to share it. This was just an overview. So what will we do next?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jon Freyr. And of course, that is a good question. So I stop the recording now and we can follow up on the question.